Yo, what up guys? In this video, I wanted to go over my first impressions of the first Descendant and what I think of the game in general. And honestly, I think you could compare it to Destiny and Warframe had a crazy ugly stepchild, and that would be this game. If I were to describe the gameplay, it kind of has that over-the-shoulder type of aim like in a game like Division or Warframe, but the actual gameplay is kind of reminiscent of going around the planets on Destiny and doing the patrol missions. And that is like a huge part of why I think this game is really generic and boring, because it's basically if you play Destiny, but instead of having story missions and things like that to go on, the main story was literally doing patrol missions. And if you've ever done them, it's basically go here, defend this point, POI, kill shit, pick something up, go drop it off, defend this location, kill shit. Oh, go over here. There's a bunch of enemies over here, kill them. And that is basically the entire story of the game, at least in the first like 5 to 10 hours of gameplay. And I think that is kind of why I think this game is very mid just in general, because it feels like the actual story is basically just randomly created just to get people to go shoot stuff, which could be fun, but it's just very poorly designed and boring. But if I were to talk about the actual gameplay, the gameplay is actually really fluid and I think really fun. Like if I were to rate it on a scale from like F to S tier, I'd put it like maybe in an A, because I think it's just very fluid. Playing the character Bunny, she basically can just run around and go crazy quick, which is actually really fun. She's actually pretty dang cool to play, and for an FPS game, I think it's actually really fun to just run around a zone at Mach 10. And so in that regard, I think the gameplay is really cool, and the shooting mechanics and audio all sound and feel really good. But going back to the way that the gameplay is designed, is basically like the developers knew that the gameplay was the only strong part about this game. So they were like, okay, how can we get the players to just go out there and play the game, even if what they're doing is not really fun, aka just doing the patrol missions. And I can see why the game developers would want to create, you know, things like patrol missions for the players to do, because it's very easy content to make. It's basically doing the same shit on repeat in every zone. And I'm not a game dev, but it almost feels like they're able to copy and paste the missions for people to do just from zone to zone. So it's very low effort and low investment content for the developers to make. And I kind of think that is what this whole game feels like to me. It's like, how can we create this really good looking game that feels good to play, but you know, we need to get players to play it, but then once you actually dig into it, it's very, very shallow. So it's kind of like the forbidden fruit, where on the surface it looks like a big and juicy apple for you to eat, but then once you actually take a bite, it's like this rotten, worm infested freaking apple. That's what this game feels like. And if you've ever played Lost Ark, it kind of feels like that game, where the story is kind of inconsequential to the actual game, and it's kind of like a thing that they were told to make, but they didn't really invest too much time in making it good. So if you've ever played Lost Ark and leveled through it, it's kind of that type of feel. It's very boring. Go here, kill this, go here, kill this. But it's actually even worse than Lost Ark, because in Lost Ark you at least had a little bit of diversity in what you were doing. And now we can talk about the abilities, which are separate from like the gun play and the actual movement gameplay, because the abilities, at least in the early game, feel really terrible. They do basically no damage until you get more and more mods for the gear to make your abilities do damage. And I know later on, once you hit like near max level, at least in the beta, you can make your abilities basically kill everything for you, but before then they feel really bad to use, honestly. And if you're somebody that wants to play the game from more of an ability standpoint, at least in the early game you won't get that, which I think they should improve. I think the base damage of the abilities should be higher, that way they feel good to use even from an early game, like the early game standpoint, and then have the mods and whatever buff your character more later to keep the abilities strong. Yeah, I think the abilities in general just feel really bad. Now, if you want my actual overarching opinion of the game, I'm going to be completely transparent here and say that this game really feels like a cash grab. Like, it has fluid gameplay and it looks good. So if you're making trailers for the game, or people are watching somebody else play the game on stream, it actually looks quite compelling. That's kind of what drew me in. But it's a very shallow game once you actually dig into it, at least from the first impressions I've had. And because many people are going to figure out in like within the first 5 to 10 hours if they're going to want to invest time in a game like I have, then this game will probably burn you out really early and you won't invest any time in it. And that the main thing again is because the story and the missions you do are very boring and are very cookie cutter, and you're literally doing the same missions on repeat throughout the entire leveling experience, and I'm like level 30 or something. So yeah, if you're looking for an interesting story, interesting missions to do, like an interesting leveling experience as well, this game will not be for you. It's actually not good in that point of view, but I am going to try to keep playing the game and get to the end game, at least in the beta, to try out maybe if there's any dungeons or raids and anything like that. But from what I can tell, there aren't any type of raids and like you would expect in like Destiny or something. It's more like single boss encounters, which are, in my opinion, kind of lame as well. I mean, they're kind of fun, but they're all in the same arena, and they're probably the most fun part of the game, but they're nothing too innovative. And honestly, the single boss encounters that you face feel like that is the only PvE that they really try to invest a little bit of time in to make the game fun. They're kind of similar to Guardian raids if you've ever played Lost Ark, but even worse in my opinion. But anyways, my first impressions of the game are, looks pretty, feels good to play, but everything else in the game is complete dog water. Should you play the game? You could try it out, but you probably will get bored. But anyways, guys, that'll be it for me in this video. Thank you so much for watching.